From the Tulsa World, this is the Newsroom podcast. I'm Jason Collington, the editor of the Tulsa World. This is where I get a chance to talk to the staff of the Tulsa World Newsroom and find out some stories behind the story. We had a very big topic in the last month or so. Banned books has been all over the place. And Lenzy Krehbiel-Burton, our education writer, took a chance to kind of take a step back and look at the process that school libraries go through to figure out how they pick the books that are on the shelves at your kid's school. And so I've got Lenzy here today. Lenzy, your story came out and it looks like that you kind of talked to a couple school districts to figure out what that process was. What are some things that you found out in your original reporting?
So, and I got the idea from a colleague who suggested it after the school board meeting at Bixby last month, where the Board of Education voted to uphold keeping 13 Reasons Why and Me and Earl and the Dying Girl in the high school libraries after a parent filed a challenge. And talking with the librarians about their process, I think one of the things that folks seem to forget, school librarians are teachers, and like any other public educator, they don't have unlimited funds. They don't have unlimited time when figuring out, okay, how am I going to best educate these kids? The librarian in particular at Clyde Boyd Middle School in Sand Springs made a point to say, I don't have an unlimited budget. If I'm going to be a good steward of taxpayer money, in addition to making sure that these books have, looking for books that have literary merit, are on grade level, things like that, I also want to pick stuff that they're actually going to pick up and read, that they're actually going to use.
Right. Because you buy the books for them to be read. Right.
Yeah,
correct.
Exactly. Yeah. Whether that's for fun or for an assignment. If they're just going to sit on the shelf and collect dust, it's not doing anybody any favors.
Right. Well, and one of the things that I liked was the quote that you had in here was, for the most part, my readers know what they are ready for. This is not something we school librarians take lightly. I mean, There really is there's some buy-in already that they know what they're trying to do here.
Oh yeah. And even the librarians at my own kids' schools, they've made it pretty clear that, they want, that they dig in, they'll talk to the kids. They ask them like, okay, what are you interested in? What are you wanting to read? They're not, the books don't just appear on the shelves by magic.
Yeah. And you also mentioned in your story that right now at the legislature, there is some stuff, there's potential new restrictions on content, whether parents can access their children's checked out records, a proposed statutory requirement that librarians take community standards into account when selecting new materials. What was kind of some of the reaction of the librarians when you talked about that legislation?
Well, when I specifically
potential legislation,
and when I talked to the librarians, we didn't really so much focus on the legislation. It was more just tell me about your process. Right. Tell me how you do it. And unprompted, several of them mentioned that they're already taking community standards into account. Now, whether that the definition of community might shift a little bit, whether that includes parents or whether that's primarily students and students and teachers is right. A school library, there's a big difference between a school library and a public library. Public library, anybody can go in, check out, versus school library, it's, you're serving that specific campus.
Right, right.
So that, there's a little bit of a difference.
What were some of the surprises? I know you have kids in Tulsa Public Schools. What were some of your surprises when you did this story? What did you not know about this process before you went into the story?
Well, and I even led with this, the Stephen King bit, threw me. I mean, I understand why, if my 12-year-old sixth grader came in with my copy of the Tommyknockers, I might have cause for pause.
Yes.
But, that was the biggest, that was just that and the one of the librarians also mentioned that she'd had students asking for Harlequin romance novels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
At what age?
Middle school.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, and she had, that was another, example of having to talk with the kids. And like, I understand that you're wanting to read romance novels. That's great. You're reading at an advanced level, but this isn't something we need to have here.
Right. Right.
I think that one honestly shocked me more than the Stephen King bit.
Yeah, I was going to say that you mentioned the fact that there's not any Stephen King novels at several of the schools, and it said that when you go through the process, when they try to go through the protocol of, does this fit? Does this go within what we're trying to do here? Maybe stand isn't something that really stands up to that process. I could certainly understand that. With this whole banned book thing, I don't think this is going away. This is a topic that comes up. I know a number of local bookstores got involved in giving away free copies of some of the banned books. What's your feeling as not only a parent, but also an education reporter who talks to a lot of parents and talks to a lot of teachers? How did this banned book kind of surge? How did it hit here in Tulsa?
Well, and this actually came up during the discussion at the Board of Education meeting last week in Claremore, as they are in the process of reviewing their media selection policy. And I think there's a lot of factors at play. I think it's a combination of, depending on the specific book, an outgrowth over the debate over critical race theory, depending on which book you're talking about.
Right.
For some, and there's also, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. It's more of it's an outgrowth of that, an outgrowth of some of the pushback that we've seen that there's been in some circles regarding social emotional learning. And it's also just seeing, I think part of it also stems from distance learning and over the last couple of years and seeing, wait, this is what my kid's interested in. Hold up.
Right.
Let's backtrack a little bit and see where did you get a hold of this? Why are you interested? Oh, okay. Let's talk.
Right. Right. And it seems like also that this kind of brought up a discussion of those books. You had some of the memes that were, if people want to ban it, you should read it. Yeah. And certainly a push for people to kind of reach out for some of those books. And again, did you find many of the banned books, some of the banned books that made national media reports? Did you find any of those in schools in Oklahoma?
I haven't actively looked yet. I will say, and like I do, for example, I'm going to pick on my own own kids' schools for a minute. I know that several of them are in their elementary school libraries. I mean, granted, the Harry Potter series was on the ALA's most challenged list up until I think this year. Drama, which is it's a graphic novel by Raina Telgemeier, and one of my daughter's favorite books, was on the challenged book list up until 2019. It's available at my son's elementary school for older grades. Yeah. So some of them are there, for better or worse.
Right. Right. When you've been an education reporter for us for how long now?
Since January 2021.
Okay. And before that, you were a freelance writer who wrote for a lot of different publications. Yeah. Lenzy is again, we've had a lot of education reporters over the years. Education is a really important topic for us. We write about it a lot. You can tell by the number of stories that Lenzy writes that we think it's very, very important. We just wrote an editorial, the Ed Board just wrote an editorial about how education keeps coming up as one of the top topics for society to succeed, for a society to do what it needs to do. And we have a lot of education challenges when it comes to that. When you're not writing about banned books, Lenzy, what are some of the topics that you've written about on this spring break before we jump into school starting back on Monday?
Oh boy. Talking to school board candidates, working on multiple previews.
Remind everyone when that election is.
April 5th. Early walk-in voting starts March 31st at county election boards.
And we've got school board races in Jinx. We've got school board races in TPS.
Jinx, Tulsa Public Schools, Union, Owasso, Sand Springs. I'm doing the map in my head. Tulsa Technology Center, Catoosa. Who am I forgetting? I know I'm going to get an email about it too.
We'll link some of the stories that you've written of the previews to this podcast. We'll also link, of course, the story to the library story that we mentioned earlier. One of the things that we
packages.
Say what?
Plus 2 bond packages. Owasso and Liberty Public Schools have bond packages too.
That's right. And again, one of the things that makes us different is that we have someone focused on education all the time. And that's something that we think is not only important, but again, when it comes to this election year, we've got multiple people in the newsroom working on all the elections and previews and candidate interviews to get everyone the information they need to be able to walk into the booth and vote with knowledge, not with emotion. And one of the things I think that's important is you try to talk to every single school board candidate. There are sometimes some of the candidates don't call us back.
Yep.
Some of the candidates don't respond to our emails and to our messages of wanting to do an interview. I know the ed board, I'm on the ed board along with 4 other people. We try to do interviews, candid interviews with them. And some of them have decided not to do those with us, not respond to our requests for interviews. I think one of the things that we try to do is we still try to go to their campaign website. We still try to let them know what their agenda is, what they say they're going to fight for, what they're going to, what they believe are the biggest issues. I know that we've got a couple races that, again, with the election coming up, we've got those previews coming out over the next couple weeks.
Yes.
You've written a lot of those already. And again, we'll try to get everyone to know when the early voting is, to know, remind them when to go to the booth. I think also some of the topics that you've been talking about is, again, a lot of the topics you're talking about is just wish you could talk to a school board member who are making some of these decisions. And that's why these seats are not, these are kind of hot seats. They are not, they're not paid well, if at all.
No.
And they are dealing with some of the biggest topics in our society, in our state. And these are important jobs to fill. And I think one of the things I've noticed in your reporting and the kinds of people that are running for school board are some veteran politicians who are saying, I think this is the most important thing I could be doing right now. It's also some parents who are saying, you know what, I think I hear from other parents and I could be a voice that maybe could reinforce another voice that's on the board. There also could be people in the community who are just trying to serve, and they're trying to serve at the most important level. And I'd call that the school board.
Yep. No, that is all of the above. I would say that is definitely all of the above. There's an interesting mix of folks that are wanting to just give back and contribute in this particular way.
Right. Right. And again, one of the things that we'll do is we'll try to get those interviews. We'll get those out there. We'll have a full voter, one-stop shop for all of the interviews, all of the information. So wherever you are in Tulsa or in Eastern Oklahoma, you know where you're going to get your information, and you know where to be at the right time to put your vote in. Lenzy, also, while I have you here, I also think it's really important is one of the things that we've tried to do here in education is really dig into some of these deep issues. The fact that we've got such a substitute teacher problem. And we're trying to get into what that is. We've written a lot about it. We've got a lot of teacher openings. We don't have enough teachers to fill the jobs that we are. We have a ton of teachers retiring. You and Andrea Eager have written about these topics in some of the projects that we've done. There's just a lot going on in education that is going in the wrong direction. And I haven't even brought up some test scores.
Well, and I think it's also worth pointing out, there are a lot of support staff openings. There are dozens of paraprofessional openings, with just about every district in the area, not just Tulsa Public.
Right.
So, you can't have a properly functioning school day without the paras, the bus drivers, the janitors, the folks serving up sandwiches in the cafeteria. They're just as important too, but yeah, there are vacancies in those positions too.
Yeah, they're dealing with a lot of what other people are dealing with in other businesses. Is there's just people not showing up and applying for these jobs. Yeah. And I can't remember what school district it was, but they couldn't run buses for a while.
That was Bixby. I know Bixby's had the most attention on the matter, but Union has had to shift routes. There was a stretch during the Omicron spike where they only had bus service for the littles, for elementary students. If you were secondary, you had to find your own way to school just because there were so few bus drivers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as I said, this is just one of the many things that you dig in on. Again, you're one of the reasons why the Tulsa World's different. You are one of the best reporters that we have here, who is in one of our most important topics. We don't just hand this beat around to anybody. And you've done a great job since you've been with us. Lenzy, very much thank you for your time. And again, get back out there, and I'm sure you have another story to file today. Everyone, this is the Tulsa World Newsroom podcast. Again, this is Jason Collington. This podcast is available on Apple, Google, and Spotify, and we will see you next time. Thank you.